All right, let's get into this. All right. We'll start the podcast from here in five, four, three, two, one, go. What's up, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the AZ Sports Podcast. I'll do that again when there's not hair in my eyes. Okay. What's up, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the AZ Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Kevin Humphreys, and today we are talking the Ketel Marte drama. Trey McBride is number 13 in the NFL Top 100 player rankings, and why Mat Ishbia is not going to be forced to sell the Phoenix Suns. Plus, we got a bunch of lists, analogies, player comparisons, so much stuff to get to on the podcast. But first, let's get into this Ketel Marte drama. Okay, if you've been living under a rock, let me explain. Okay, I'll try this again. If you've been living under a rock and don't know what happened to love doing this live. One day someone's going to go back through and clip all my mess ups on these live streams. Okay, three, two, one, go. If you've been living under a rock and don't know what has happened with Ketel Marte, let me lay it out for you. So, on Monday night, Ketel Marte did not show up to the Arizona Diamondbacks game versus the Boston Red Sox in Boston. Marte traveled with the team Sunday night to Boston and was expected to DH for the Diamondbacks on Monday. Marte was MIA. No one knew where he was. Coaches, media, players. Derek Hall was there with the team in Boston as the acting head management for the Diamondbacks during the trip. No one knew where Marte was. No one knew why he was gone, other than that it was a personal issue. So the Diamondbacks had no choice but to put Marte on the restricted list and called up Jose Fernandez, who, by the way, has played well for the Diamondbacks since being called up. Now, moving on to after the game, Torey Lovullo was asked where Marte was. He said he didn't know. He hoped he was at the team hotel. He was he looked emotionally distraught. He said he cared for Marte, but was you could tell he was disappointed that Marte wasn't with the team, and he just didn't know why. No one knows why. Mike Hazen was on a Arizona sports radio show yesterday with Wolf and Luke and said that he didn't know why either. He's reportedly going to meet with Ketel Marte today, who came home from Arizona to get an MRI on his knee and to get his personal issue sorted out. What that issue is, we don't know. Will it ever be known? The Diamondbacks try and handle these things a lot internally, so maybe we'll never know. Derek Hall came on the radio today with Bickley and Murata and said that it's bizarre that he still doesn't know what exactly happened or why it happened. And this is 3 days after it happened. Maybe we'll get more clarity today as Marte meets with Hazen. Maybe things will be reported, or maybe the Diamondbacks will try and keep it under wraps and behind closed doors. Marte did release a statement saying he thanked the organization and listed by name Torey Lovullo through in a response through his agent saying he's grateful for all the support from the fans, organization, and Torey Lovullo as he works through his issue and wants to be back with the team as soon as possible. We're going to find out exactly in the coming days what happened with Ketel Marte, why he did the things that he did, and if he's going to even be a Diamondback for the rest of the season, or honestly, if he doesn't play for the rest of the season, does he ever play a game in a Diamondbacks uniform again? Now, this story has layers to it. This isn't just a one time thing where Marte is disappointed the fans, his teammates, his coaches, and the entire organization as a whole. In 2024, when the Diamondbacks fell out of the wild card by one game, Marte sat out multiple games in the month of September, and it was reported that his teammates were frustrated that with the Diamondbacks in the playoff chase, that Marte would still sit out games in the last week in the last month of the season. So there have been frustrations there. There were major frustrations last year when Marte decided to not show up for the first for the first game out of the All-Star break in St. Louis. Now, Torey Lovello did say that he did have a little heads up from Marte in that instance and didn't have any heads up with what happened on Monday, with what occurred on Monday. Torey Lovello's the Diamondbacks manager, and he's gone to bat for Marte and covered for Marte. And Marte has said when he was extended and in other instances that he's grateful for a manager like Marte, a player's manager, a manager who lets Marte take days off when he needs to, a manager that will take bullets for Marte. And you can tell that Torey Lovello has been deeply affected by the events that transpired on Monday and since then. Now, back to what happened with the Cardinals. In in this instance, Marte was reportedly not going to show up and wasn't even answering phone calls from the Diamondbacks until they threatened to suspend him. Eventually, Marte answered his phone and came back and rejoined the team. And then it coincidentally happened in the same time frame where Marte's house was broken into. So the Diamondbacks did give Marte a couple of days to sort that out as well, being on their restricted list. But once it was reported that Marte was not present for the Cardinals series because he was just going to no show and not because his house got broken into, the Diamondbacks went on to lose 8 of their next 9 games after the Cardinals series. And you could blame that. You could just blame the team not being good enough. But the facts remain is Marte's actions, there was a cloud over the team until the trade deadline where they ultimately were forced to sell at the deadline. On after Marte's actions on Monday, the Diamondbacks lost 2 games in a row. Monday's effort was uninspiring. Tuesday, outside of the Gabriel Moreno home run, there wasn't any. Tuesday, after Gabriel Moreno's home run, grand slam in the 4th inning, there was very little life left in the Diamondbacks roster. But on Wednesday, they did come back and beat the Boston Red Sox despite Brandon Font giving up 3 home runs. So maybe the Diamondbacks have turned it around and have figured it out, or we're going to find out very quickly against the Reds if this cloud of drama, distraction is still hanging over the organization, or if things are figured out, maybe Marte will be back in the lineup on Friday. Maybe the Diamondbacks decide to suspend him to hold him accountable. Maybe Marte's out for weeks or months, or he never plays another game with the Diamondbacks again. And here's the thing. This is a reflection on not just Marte, but it's a reflection on this Diamondbacks organization. When the details come out about what happened, this is going to reflect directly on Mike Hazen and Torey Lovello and how the Diamondbacks are running this organization. This situation could cost Torey Lovello his job because right now he doesn't have a contract with the Arizona Diamondbacks after the end of the season. He hasn't signed an extension. Maybe the Diamondbacks will bring him back. Maybe they won't. You can make arguments for and against Torey Lovullo. You can look at Torey Lovullo over the last 10 years and say he's only made the playoffs twice. Then you can also say the roster wasn't there for half of his time. But then you look over the last 3 to 4 seasons, you could easily make the argument that the Diamondbacks underperformed compared to what they should have done over the last 4 years. Obviously, they did make a World Series run, but in 2024 and 2025, Diamondbacks had a talented roster that easily could have made the playoffs but didn't both years. And is that all on Torey Lovullo and Mike Hazen? No, but could Mike Hazen's could Mike Hazen be let go at the end of the season because he knew he needed to trade Ketel Marte because of the drama that follows Marte? And maybe Marte's a diva, or maybe he's a guy who made some really critical mistakes. Maybe Marte, I mean, I can try and make excuses for Marte's unprofessionalism because that's basically what it is. Regardless of the personal issue that Marte has right now, it's the unprofessionalism with how he's handled it that is making this a story. Same with what happened in 2025 and same with what happened in 2024. It's the unprofessionalism that has brought scrutiny to this situation and has made this such a distraction for the Diamondbacks. Maybe if Marte had just been transparent from the beginning, if Marte had been transparent from the beginning, would the Diamondbacks be in this same hole that they're in right now? I don't know. But if he lets the Diamondbacks know on Monday in the morning that he's dealing with a personal issue and needs to go back to the Diamondbacks, yes, there would be frustrations. Yes, there would be people saying that Marte is being a diva or a superstar. There might be that, but there definitely wouldn't be this storm and this cloud hanging over the organization like there is now because he just went MIA. I mean, there was a 24 to 48 hours where it didn't seem like anyone on the team knew where he was or what was going on. At least right now, the organization knows where he is. They don't know what's going on still. Derek Hall was on the radio 4 hours ago and said, "Yeah, I have no idea what's going on." 4 hours ago. And Marte went MIA on Monday. So not only has this thing caught obviously all of Diamondbacks fans by storm, but also baseball fans in general by storm. There's just so much to this Marte story, and I hope for the sake of the Diamondbacks players and fans that this doesn't ultimately ruin what could have been a really fun August and September and hopefully October, where the Diamondbacks are in the playoffs, making a playoff push. Right now, the Diamondbacks are one game back of the Padres, who are in the final wild card spot, and they're 3 games back of the Phillies, who are in the second wild card spot. There's right now they're 7 games back of the Cubs for the top wild card spot. I don't believe that anyone's going to catch the Cubs, but those are the numbers for you. This weekend, the Diamondbacks play the Reds at home. It's Eduardo Rodriguez, it's Michael Soroka, and it's Mitch Bratt, who are supposed to be the expected starters. You think that the Diamondbacks have a pretty good chance of taking 2 out of 3 in this series with Rodriguez and Soroka as the projected starters. We'll see what happens with Mitch Bratt on Sunday. But yeah, this this Ketel Marte cloud that's hanging over the organization, it needs to be solved as fast as possible. Whatever the resolution is, and there will definitely be debate, and I'm sure we'll be debating on Monday. If Marte plays in this Red series, we'll say, man, should he have been playing? Like, Did the Diamondbacks punish him at all? That's definitely a narrative that could come out. But at the same time, the Diamondbacks need Marte in the lineup. He leads the team in home runs, and they need him to get hot before the playoffs because right now he has not had the offensive season that the Diamondbacks needed him to have so far. He could turn that all around in 6 weeks and hit 10 homers before the 10 more home runs before the end of the season and hit for a 900 OPS and have one of his hottest stretch of the season. That is definitely something that Marte could do to end the season, or we could see more of the same, where he struggles against everyone not named the Rockies and Giants, where right now he has a 208 batting average against all teams not Rockies or San Francisco Giants. So this story isn't going away anytime soon, unfortunately. And maybe I'll be recording another video tonight after Mike Hazen meets with Marte and we finally get to figure out what happened. Oh, and by the way, the Arizona Diamondbacks didn't even make it home yesterday. Because of the storms in Phoenix, they they had to spend the night in Las Vegas. So what must have felt like the longest 3 to 4 days in the world for that team with the Marte drama, losing 2 games in Boston, losing the final game of the series against Atlanta, ultimately overcoming all of that and winning the final game of the series Wednesday afternoon in Boston. I'm sure all these guys wanted nothing more than just to get home and to have a nice off day, but now they have maybe they've made it home by now. But they did spend the night in Las Vegas last night. And so this team is absolutely going through the doldrums and I would say the hardest part of the season right now. Not necessarily because of who they're playing against, but more so because of what's happening off the field. Although Atlanta and Boston are two of the top 7 to 8 teams in baseball right now, of course. And going into the road trip, we probably would have been happy with a 3-3 split. But with everything that's transpired with Marte, with the organization, it's hard to know how this Diamondbacks team, it's hard to project how this Diamondbacks team is going to play for the rest of the season because we don't know what's going on with Marte. He got an MRI yesterday, supposedly, or maybe the MRI happens today. What's going to come from that? Is Marte even healthy enough to play for the rest of the season? The Diamondbacks definitely don't think that there's a knee issue because they were going to have him DH. They thought he was at least healthy enough to DH. They also have Nolan Arenado who has not played in the field since Sunday after he hurt his trunk, which I love. I love an injured trunk. I hope we get to see more trunk injuries reported in the future because obviously there's a lot of ways you can have fun with that. But this Diamondbacks team has been been through it with injuries and young guys coming up and playing well and not playing well. And now a lot of the guys who have been on the injury list, the reinforcements are supposedly coming back, but we'll find out. We'll find out very soon if all these reinforcements coming back is actually going to help this team or hurt this team. Because if Zach Gallen comes back, if he continues to pitch the same way he did through the first half of the season, that's not really reinforcements. Obviously, we saw Justin Martinez come back and Jordan Lawler come back so far. Gurriel looks like he's on his way back. Corbin Burns looks like he's on his way back. Tommy Troy at some point I think will be on his way back. Will he even play in on the major league roster for the rest of the season? Or is he just going to, be one of the 40-man guys who doesn't get any playing time for the rest of the season? It's going to be a roller coaster ride for the Diamondbacks, definitely for the next week and probably for the rest of the season with the roster constraints that they'll have when up until the day rosters can are fully opened up in September. It's gonna be a roller coaster ride with guys coming back from injury. How do the Diamondbacks get their pitching rotation and bullpen figured out? Because we've seen some guys pitch really well this season. Some guys are on the IL right now, like Dre Jameson and Ryan Thompson. Are those guys gonna come back? Do we see potentially Zach Gallen get moved to the bullpen, or does Merrill Kelly lose the starting spot? Obviously, Mitch Bratt has not pitched well enough to probably keep the starting spot, and his performance Monday night against the Red Sox was concerning because of how low his average velo was. Um, Hopefully, there's nothing more going on there than just an off night in Boston, but we'll have to see there. There is so much with this Diamondbacks team and with this Ketel Marte story that we have to figure out at some point. And hopefully it's soon because the longer this drags out, the more of a distraction it becomes to the team and the more it's talked about. And Hazen talked about yesterday on Wolf and Luke about how any energy and focus that isn't put towards baseball, he feels is a detriment to the team. So with this cloud hanging over the team, it's going to affect their performance in Hazen's opinion. So the faster that they can get this out of the way and we can just focus on what's happening on the field, the better for fans. Maybe not for media. I mean, obviously, this has been this has been a great story for clicks. If you're Arizona sports or his front page at ESPN, I mean, this story just has so many levels to it, and it's so it it resonates with people in such a way because it's something that we've never seen before. Usually, uh, if a guy like you, this just doesn't happen. It just doesn't happen. Guys just don't show up to work and don't tell anyone. It's one thing to, need to miss a game for personal or injury related reasons. That's obviously fine. Like we've seen that happen time and time again in baseball, but it's the level of unprofessionalism that has us so riveted and has me checking Twitter basically every hour, that I'm awake. It's just we just keep hearing more, and every time a Diamondbacks person from the organization, whether it's Tory, pre or post game, Mike Hazen and Derek Hall in their weekly interviews on Arizona Sports or in other entities, Corbin Carroll admitted that it was a distraction for the team on Monday night. He said that on Burns and Gambo. So, this team is going to have to rally together. And hopefully they have enough leadership to get through it. It sounds like, according to Mike Hazen, Eduardo Rodriguez and Nolan Arenado and Geraldo Perdomo have been guys that have been leading the clubhouse, and Corbin Carroll has uh, been a leader during this time as well. Corbin Carroll is the face of the franchise, so you want your face of the franchise to be the guy that gets everyone moving in the right direction. Perdomo is obviously the emotional and probably vocal leader of this team. And so he's definitely a guy to watch as well. I mean, those two guys I think are the most important Diamondbacks in the organization right now. And obviously, leadership wise, on the field, off the field, those are the two most important guys going forward. Um, would it be nice to have a guy like Christian Walker in the clubhouse as well right now? Obviously he had the walk-off home run against the Mariners in the last week. Reminded time and time again how much we would have loved to have had him on the roster right now. Um, Especially felt like when he was on the team that, you know, obviously there was still stuff happened, but it felt like his professionalism and his leadership on the team was everyone followed in line of Christian Walker. And since he left, I mean, maybe I'm being over dramatic by saying that when Christian Walker left and uh obviously the Diamondbacks lost a really great first baseman. But when Christian Walker left, they also lost a lot of leadership, walked through that door. And have they been able to replace it? They definitely did not last year with or with Eugenio Suarez and Josh Naylor. Those two guys were great players for the Diamondbacks last year, but it didn't feel like the leadership was there. Obviously, in 24, Jock Peterson really like kind of assimilated a leadership role pretty early on in the clubhouse, or at least as a mentor to a lot of the young players. Nolan Arenado's kind of taken that on this year as a mentor in the clubhouse. Um, but that leader of and consistent professionalism that Christian Walker had for his time as a Diamondback. Corbin Carroll, I guess, kind of filled that role as the lead by example guy because we all know Corbin is one of the hardest working players in the major league. I mean, he is the most meticulous grinder, most detail oriented guy on this team. He's always trying to get better. And I, just looking at Corbin like physically, I think he's probably got to have like one of the lowest body fat percentages of any player in the MLB. And now that's not to say you have to be like a sub 4% body fat to be good at baseball. We see guys in baseball more than any other professional sport outside of golf maybe that carry weight or don't look like they're, the elite of the elite athletes, and they still are really good at baseball. I mean, we've seen a ton of those guys. There's a reason why the big guys hit tanks, right? It's just mass creates power. So, I'm not saying you have to look like Corbin Carroll does to be great at baseball, but I mean, you can just tell the way he takes care of his body. Um, I don't know if there's an ounce of body fat on that guy. And it's that kind of work ethic that sets the tone for this Diamondbacks team in a lot of ways. But maybe uh I don't know. I'm just throwing out ideas right now. I don't know if any of this is actually real. I'd love to get an in-depth look from a writer, or maybe a player comes out and talks about how the hierarchy of leadership is in the Diamondbacks organization, how the players hold each other accountable. I would love to hear stories about that, and maybe stuff will come out about that as we move forward with this Ketel Marte situation. Okay, man, that's 30 minutes on Marte. A couple quick hitters before we finish up talking about the Diamondbacks. Like I said before, Cincinnati against Cincinnati, Rodriguez, Soroka, and Bratt pitch Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I expect the Diamondbacks to win at least 2 games in the series. Three would be great, especially because they just need to stay within a game of the Padres until the end of the season and hopefully be in striking distance when they play the Phillies at the end of the month, where if they take 2 out of 3 or 3 out of 3 against the Phillies, they could shoot themselves all the way up into that second wild card spot, depending on how the other series go and how the Padres play around them. Couple of on the field notes. We've talked a lot of off field stuff so far, but Brandon Garcia has been struggling of late. He hasn't been quite as locked in. Yesterday, he was not able to make it through an entire inning. Um, and he just continues to give up a lot more contact, a lot more hard hit contact. In the last few weeks since Paul Sewald was designated for assignment, Justin Martinez did return for the Diamondbacks. He had an absolutely wild night. He walked a batter, he hit a batter, he threw a wild pitch. There was 2 on second and third, but he did not allow any runs in his 1 inning pitched in the bottom of the 8th inning on Tuesday night's game. So anyone who expected Martinez to come back and immediately usurp the closer role probably going to have to hit the brakes on that. I mean, I already talked about that. Um, I already talked about that in a previous podcast. He's going to be very reckless and very erratic. And so it's going to take probably a week, 2 weeks. It might take the whole season for him to really find himself and get back to being um an accurate closer level type of pitcher. But is the heat there and are the guns there? Absolutely. Absolutely. He looks healthy, which is the most important thing. Unfortunately for the Diamondbacks, Jordan Lawler came back from injury and after hitting 5 home runs in double A, has not recorded a hit in 10 at bats and has 5 strikeouts. Lawler had been hitting really well to start the season. And when he came back from injury in his short time back, I believe it was just like 2 games, but he had a few hits in those 2 games in between injury um, setbacks. Obviously, the Diamondbacks need some type of pop from from whoever's playing in the outfield outside of Corbin Carroll. They got a lot of pop this last series from Jose Fernandez and Ryan Waldschmidt. Obviously, you want to see that continue. Um, but Jordan Lawler is a guy that the Diamondbacks have needed to step up and play well in a big way for a long time. And it's time. It's time for Jordan Lawler to make his impact at a big league level consistently during a playoff push. 0 for 10, not going to cut it, but also he's coming back from multiple months absence. So, I think before you make any clear decisions or takes about the guy, you have to let him get 20 at bats minimum at the major league level, and then you kind of start from there and say, okay, now after 20 at bats at a major league level, you've seen all the kinds of pitches. Now it's time to start mashing again. And so, unfortunately for the Diamondbacks, it might take a little bit of time for Lawler to get back to hopefully being the player we want him to be and the player he looked like he could be at the start of the season. So, it's just unfortunately going to take time, but the Diamondbacks don't have a ton of time to be patient and wait for guys to come around because right now they are 1 game back of the wild card spot. We finally saw signs of life from Lars Nootbaar. The Diamondbacks traded for Lars Nootbaar, and he has not really given the Diamondbacks a whole lot. Obviously, he's had a couple big hits. He had a big RBI single against the Padres in a game right when he first got to Arizona. But by far the biggest hit of his time in an Arizona Diamondbacks uniform came yesterday, Wednesday. The Diamondbacks were tied 2-2, and he hit what we thought was going to be the game clinching home run to give the Diamondbacks a 5-2 lead before Brandon Falk gave up a 3-run home run in the bottom of the 6th inning. But it was good to see Newbar come in. He pinched hit for Jordan Lawler and came up with a massive hit to give the Diamondbacks what we thought was a convincing 5-2 lead. Um, Hopefully that's a step in the right direction for Newbar and he can kind of get to being the player the Diamondbacks really need him to be as the main left-handed hitter in the lineup outside of Perdomo and Carroll. And he can be a steadying presence for the offense when they go against right-handed pitching. That's what the Diamondbacks traded Nootbaar to do. And he did it against the Red Sox on Wednesday. He was one of the biggest reasons why they won the game. And so they're going to need a whole lot more of that from Nootbaar going forward. On a positive note, Gabriel Moreno continues to be the best catcher in the National League. He's one of the best defenders. He's definitely the best here in the National League. He's the second best hitting catcher in baseball. Right now, he has a 13-game hit streak, which leads all of baseball. He's hit, I believe, 11. He has 11 games out of his last 13 with an RBI. So it's not just that Moreno's hitting the baseball well, but he's also hitting the baseball when guys are on base. Diamondbacks, unfortunately, as we saw in the Red Sox series and the Braves series, still really struggling to hit with runners in scoring position. At some point, that has to change. Maybe the Diamondbacks offense gets super hot to end of the season and they can get back to being a more average team with runners in scoring position, but we'll take what we can get. The biggest thing, in my opinion, is that we're just not getting enough of slug. And so we're dinking and dunking our way on base. But even if we do, like, I can't, it feels so bizarre this season. The Diamondbacks will have a guy on second and they'll hit a single, and somehow the runner will not advance all the way home on a single. Obviously, there are certain situations where it's a hard hit ball, it goes directly to the outfielder on a one hop. Um, and the outfielder can make an easy throw home. But there are many times this season where it just feels like the Diamondbacks are not able to score runs on because they're just not hitting the ball well enough to get guys home from second base. They need more slug, whether that's home runs or just guys who hit extra base hits at a premium. Whatever they do, they just need more slug. And with Marte out, obviously there's not they're losing one of their best sluggers on the lineup. Gabriel Moreno has actually increased his slugging since the All-Star break. He has multiple home runs. Arenado's gotten hot since the All-Star break as well. He has 6 home runs so far in the month of August, and probably maybe would have more if he didn't get injured on Monday. We'll see how he finishes up the month. But overall, the Diamondbacks just need more slug, whether that comes from Corbin, Perdomo, Arenado, Moreno. Tao has shown an ability to hit some home runs and to hit with some slug. Fernandez had multiple doubles in this Red Sox series. Same with Waldschmidt. If Waldschmidt can provide more slug as well, they just need more slug because when you're just hitting singles, it's hard for guys to score because you have to really string together a lot of singles for a rally. But you get multiple doubles in an inning, that's how you put up some of these big innings against good teams. As far as reinforcements go, Nolan Arenado avoided the injury list, but it'll be interesting to see with how well Jose Fernandez has played if they decide to keep him up at the major league level and look to send someone else down. Corbin Burns, Lourdes Gurriel, and company. Maybe Zach Gallen could be back. Um, Definitely the first week of September, perhaps earlier than that. Maybe Tommy Troy is on the mend as well. As far as reinforcements go, that's what the Diamondbacks are looking at right now. So can they survive the next 10 days before Burns comes back? Maybe Gurriel comes back and plays well. Maybe Tommy Troy comes back and plays well. Maybe Zach Gallen comes back and pitches well, and they figured out whatever was going wrong with Gallen. Maybe that's something that they figure out. But the reinforcements are coming. Can the Diamondbacks get to September still in a prime position to make a real run at the playoffs in September? Okay. Sorry, my throat hurts. It's what talking for 40 minutes in a row will do to you. Okay. All right, let's get to the most clickbaity um let's get to the most clickbaity part I have in the podcast, right? This Ketel Marte drama has made me think about who in Arizona sports history has been the most, you can call it diva, you can call it the most distracting, you can call it the most detrimental player to an organization. in recent Arizona sports history. And the actions of Ketel Marte, although significantly different in what they were, have unfortunately reminded me of a guy who tanked a really good Phoenix Suns team because of his inability to show up in the biggest moments for his team. Ketel Marte and DeAndre Ayton are both ruining the 2020s for Arizona sports fans. Let me start with Ayton because it's also the same thing with Ketel Marte. So in 2021, DeAndre Ayton was one of the main reasons the Suns made the NBA Finals and where they ultimately lost to Milwaukee Bucks because Ayton didn't play well. Right? We all know that. But during that playoff run, we heard Bill Simmons and Ryan Russillo talk about, man, is DeAndre Ayton a top 20, top 30 player in the league right now? That's how good DeAndre Ayton was playing. I mean, as Suns fans, we were even tricking ourselves into saying, hey, Mavs fans, look at us. Look who really won. Look who really won that 2018 draft after all, huh? Huh? Our guys playing well. We're in the finals. Look at us, right? DeAndre Ayton was a huge reason why. He was incredible during the finals run. During the offseason, he didn't get the extension he wanted. In 2022, he went out and played his best season in the NBA. Field goal percentage off the charts. Defensive activity off the charts. He was focused more than honestly it you look at who DeAndre Ayton was for that 2022 season and look at any other season he's played before or since then, you wouldn't recognize the guy. He wanted that $100 million contract so badly, and he was so locked in. The Suns won a franchise record 63 or 64 games and then looked poised to make another run to the NBA Finals in the playoffs. That is until Ayton, yet again, wet the bed, quit on his team, and ultimately got in an argument with Monty Williams and didn't even play the last half, which obviously was a meaningless half against the Dallas Mavericks. But you could tell that Ayton's actions and that there was a lot of buildup between Monty Williams and DeAndre Ayton. And Ayton had an outburst on the bench, fought with Monty Williams, and then it was like, oh man, here we go again. But the Phoenix Suns still decided to extend DeAndre Ayton because they really didn't have another choice. Although, if they had done a sign and trade for Miles Teller, who knows where this Phoenix Suns team could be right now. Tell you what, they'd be in a lot better position if they had done that than when they re-signed DeAndre Ayton. That's for dang sure. Okay. So, but that's not where the Ayton story ends. It's not where the Ayton story ends. The Ayton story continues because Ayton comes back. Things are testy at best between him and Monty Williams. They went a whole summer without speaking to each other. An entire summer, your franchise center and your head coach did not talk to each other. Now, Ketel Marte and Tori Lavello's situation, I'm sure, is very different. I don't think their relationship has ever been this fractured. Although I will say, after Marte's actions, that's the type of thing that can ruin a relationship just as bad, if not worse, than Monty Williams and DeAndre Ayton's issues became. Okay, and then in that 2023 season, the Suns decide to trade for Kevin Durant. They trade Bridges, Johnson, Crowder for Durant. Ayton is still on the team with Chris Paul, Devin Booker, Kevin Durant. It was supposed to be this big three, three and a half, four, depending on what Ayton you got. He didn't have as great of a season in 23 as he did in 22. but you were hoping, hey, we make it to the playoffs, we get playoff DA, we can make a run. And then what happens? In the Nuggets series, plays a couple games, he gets abused by Jokic. He sits out the rest of the series. Um, it appeared as if he quit on his team again. Don't know that for a fact, but in my opinion, two series or two back-to-back years where Ayton quits on his team during the playoffs. Maybe 3. I mean, I don't think he quit in 21, but he definitely uh was not physically tough enough to defend Giannis for an entire playoff series. So, you could argue 2 or 3 years DeAndre Ayton was one of the main, if not the main reason why that the Phoenix Suns did not advance further in the playoffs, whether that was winning an NBA title or making it to at least the conference championship round. Now let's go through what Ketel Marte's done. So in 2023, Marte has followed a pretty similar script. Marte was one of, if not the main reason why the Diamondbacks made the World Series. He had a hit in every single postseason game during that 2023 run. He was the best hitter on the team. He's obviously a great defensive for second baseman. So as far as offensive guys go, Ketel Marte was the man during that 2023 run. Then he gets his extension in 2024. Marte has the drama at the end of the season where his teammates were mad that he sat out of games in September. Sounding familiar yet? Maybe a little diva energy there. Did he quit on his team? I'm not sure. He was probably injured. In my opinion, I'm gonna I'll give Ketel Marte much more benefit of the doubt than I will DeAndre Ayton. That's for dang sure. But then in 2025, Ketel Marte has has the All-Star break fiasco where he doesn't show up, he's not in communication with the team, and is put on the restricted list. Diamondbacks go on to lose 8 of their 9 last games, 8 of their 9 games right before the trade deadline. You could say that the cloud that of Ketel Marte was hanging over that team as well. So, while different, you can point to Ketel Marte being one of the main reasons why the Diamondbacks didn't make the playoffs either of those 2 years. And now, the Diamondbacks, who were the best team record-wise in July, coming off of a series win against Atlanta. Yes, they didn't play great against the Rockies, but had won pretty much every series before that since the All-Star break. They were playing their best baseball. And then in the snap of a finger in one day, all the good vibes and the positive momentum that the Diamondbacks had going into the last 6 weeks of the season, gone, evaporated. Fan base enraged, disappointed. Torey Lavello almost crying during a post-game interview. Diamondbacks getting absolutely shelled 11-1. Errors by Corbin Carroll, Ryan Waldschmidt. Nolan Arenado's hurt, one of your best defenders. All of a sudden, what was looking to be a team that we could truly get behind and a team that we're all ready to believe can not just make the postseason, but make a postseason run. Ketel Marte spits on that, dumps on it, rains on the parade with his personal actions, his lack of professionalism. Now, do I think Ketel Marte is a better teammate than DA? I do. But the lack of professionalism, maybe the lack of mental maturity, I'll call it for lack of a better word. No, I think we can definitely point to Marte and DeAndre Ayton as two of the more immature but supremely talented players that we've had in Arizona sports over the last decade. So talented, so immature, and you can point directly to those two as to why the franchises are in the exact same situation. Now, does Marte get traded for a Yusuf Nurkic and Grayson Allen level players? Honestly, the Suns might get better value in a DeAndre Ayton trade than the Arizona Diamondbacks are going to get in a Ketel Marte trade at the end of the season. Should Mike Hazen have traded Marte last offseason? It was a topic that we talked about then, and it's a topic that's going to get revisited now because you look at what the Diamondbacks could have gotten back reportedly in the Ketel Marte trades versus what they'll probably get back should they decide to trade him this offseason. I think we'll be severely disappointed in the return because of this ginormous stain on Marte's career, his lack of professionalism. Now, are there teams that will still absolutely want to pursue him because of how special he is as a talent on the field? Potentially, but he also hasn't been as great offensively as he has been for the last 5 years. So there you have it. DeAndre and Ketel Marte. If you want to throw Kyler Murray in there, you point at those three and say if those three guys had been more mature, more professional, although I would say Kyler's definitely a distant third behind those two. But if you had more professionalism and more maturity from DeAndre and Ketel Marte, how much better would things be for the Arizona Diamondbacks and Phoenix Suns right now? I'd argue a whole heck of a lot better. Okay. All right. It turns out this week, if you've been on Twitter and you've followed the Mat Ishbia saga, turns out there's a lot of people that don't actually know how to click on hyperlinks. Now, why do I say that? Because Joe Pompliano, hope I say that right, Joe, posted an article called "Could a Margin Call Force a Phoenix Suns Sale?" Now, the headline was definitely clickbaity, and it sent people in people a part of the Suns fan base into a panic. But that was because they didn't read the article. This article detailed how Mat Ishbia bought the Suns. He borrowed billions from JP Morgan and he used shares of his mortgage company, United Wholesale Mortgage, as collateral. And it avoided the reason why he did this, according to the article, is it allowed him to avoid selling large amounts of UWM stock and losing voting control or triggering capital gains taxes. Now, because of this, there's a margin call risk. So the bank, if the stock falls in value, they can issue a margin call. They may demand additional stock or cash. If the borrower cannot provide more collateral, the bank can sell the pledged shares to recover its money. Forced selling can push the stock price even lower. So people are people see this article headline, they look, maybe they read the first couple of paragraphs and they're like, "Oh no, we're doomed. Mat Ishbia is going to have to sell the franchise." So, but this is where it gets good. And this is a great article I recommend everyone go read it. It's by Joe Pompliano. It's on Substack. Here's what happened to UWM stock. Ishbia pledged roughly 805 million UWM shares, representing more than half of the company's outstanding stock. Those shares were originally worth about 4.6 billion. After UWM stock fell more than 70%, they were worth only about 1.15 billion. So, not great. I mean, as far as Mat Ishbia's net worth and the stock goes, this is not great. There's no disputing that, right? The article continues to talk about why UWM situation worsened. They reported a $600 million loss connected to a failed acquisition and an unsuccessful interest rate hedge. The company received 1.5 billion from Oak Tree Private Equity. Received 150 million from Ishbia's holding company. Planned a $400 million rights offering and suspended its quarterly dividend. UWM stock fell another 35% in one day after the dividend suspension. Um, it then illustrates why people feared for the Suns. Investors worried that JP Morgan might demand more collateral. Some speculated that Ishbia might need to sell part of his sports holdings, including the Suns' Mercury or his stake in the White Sox, to raise cash. But Joe thinks Ishbia won't have to sell the Suns. And here's why. Ishbia and his family have received more than 6 billion in UWM distributions, mainly through dividends over the last 5 years. So while the stock fell, Ishbia has made $6 billion off of dividends over the last 5 years. So what he's done with that six billion, I don't know, but he's at least made $6 billion from his mortgage company over the last 5 years. He personally contributed 150 million to UWM's rescue financing, suggesting he has access to cash. So he probably doesn't have 6 billion liquid, but he was able to pull together 150 million for financing pretty quickly. His loans may also be backed by other assets, including future distributions from the Suns, private equity investments. The exact loan amount and collateral requirements are not publicly clear, but UWM claims Ishbia's outstanding loan balance is enough that it could be repaid at any time. Bigger problem is that UWM itself is struggling. Um, if it continues to struggle, then they're going to have to pay up to, I believe it's 500 million uh, additional to Oak Tree if the company doesn't turn around. And it sounds like Oak Tree might be able to. I mean, they will have board seats now. Um, but if things get worse, maybe they continue. Maybe things continue to get worse for Ishbia and his company. So if Ishbia's company continues to do worse, then yes, it is a problem for Matt Ishbia. But Ishbia has the amount of money required to ultimately pay for the Suns if needed because he's made $6 billion in dividends. So it's not a five alarm fire right now for Matt Ishbia for the Suns. Sound UWM and Ishbia are saying that the loans are low enough that they can be repaid at any time. So as long as Ishbia's been smart financially, he could buy the Suns outright from the loans at any point, according to this article, if everything in this article is up to date and accurate. So Ishbia not in trouble yet, but it is definitely something to monitor going forward. But I think the most important takeaway from this is, guys, if you see an inflammatory headline, click and read the actual article before you jump to immediate conclusions because in this article, Joe says he doesn't think that Matt Ishbia's future owning the Suns is in jeopardy right now. Could it one day be in the future? Yeah, we'll have to. We didn't think we were going to have to monitor UWM At least we didn't want to, but we're gonna have to start monitoring it now. If it makes a quick turnaround, all is well. We'll be just fine. If not, we're gonna have to see how Ishbia decides to run the Suns. If he maybe he starts charging more, giving less to the community. If that happens, then we'll know that Ishbia is in financial trouble. He'll start acting the same way Robert Sarver did. But until then, I think as a Suns fan, just sit back, cheer on the Suns. Hopefully, this new core can win some basketball games. And as I predicted last podcast, I think they'll win even more games this season, barring injuries. All right. Wow, we're an hour in and we haven't even got to the Cardinals yet, who play a preseason game on Saturday. Now, there's not a whole lot to preview, unfortunately. As of right now, it doesn't appear like most, if any, of the starters are going to play. Obviously, Jeremiah Love, Carson Beck, Chase Besantis, all unfortunately out with injuries. Besantis is out for the year. Jeremiah Love is out until the season opener. We'll see with Carson Beck. He's not expected to play at the beginning of the season anyway, so he has time to work his way back from a rib injury. But what we can talk about and should talk about is Monty Fort and how he's potentially going to cut 3 top 100 draft picks that he's made since being here. So, guys on the cut line right now include BJ Ojulari at edge or outside linebacker, Trey Benson at running back, and Elijah Jones at corner. All three of those guys have been top 100 draft picks for Austin Fort over the last 3 seasons. Ojulari was a second round pick. Trey Benson was a second round pick. Elijah Jones was a third round pick. Looks like all of these guys are on the verge of potentially getting cut. Now, do top 100 picks get cut from NFL rosters? Yes, they do. The Steve Keim administration, but there's definitely guys that Austin Fort has done well drafting. In my opinion, getting Will Johnson in the second round last year, assuming Johnson plays 8 to 10 years in the league, might be his best draft pick. Walter Nolan, stud when he plays. How often is he going to play? That's a question. Jury's still out on Paris Johnson if that was a good pick. If Austin Fort, uh, when he made that trade, made those draft day trades to get Paris Johnson, he traded with the Texans, who looked like and were projected to be one of the worst teams in the NFL the next season. And so um trading for that future Texans pick seemed like a good idea at the time. Although obviously Texans drafted one of the best edge rushers in football that would have been nice to have on this Cardinals team, no doubt. Definitely haven't won the value trade there because unfortunately the next season the Texans actually made the playoffs with Stroud and they have one of the best defenses in the league. And so what the Cardinals hoped was going to become a top 10 pick the next season ultimately did not. They were picking at the back end of the first round with that Texans pick. So at the time seemed like a wise gamble, but ultimately that gamble failed. And so we're stuck with Paris Johnson Jr. instead of having one of the best defensive ends in football. So you can look at Austin Fort's draft history and it doesn't look great. It just doesn't look great. And so with Ojulari, Trey Benson, and Elijah Jones all getting cut, it's just more evidence as to why Austin Fort should not be the general manager at the end of the season. And so with that, I'll get into the top guys in the Cardinals organization that are on the hot seat entering this season. And my number one by far and away this offseason, it's Monty Fort. There's just there's no one that even comes close. He's not drafted top level talent as well as he should have, considering how poor the Cardinals have been over the last few seasons. Obviously, not making the playoffs since 2021. There is great talent on this roster, but you had to deal with the Kyler Murray situation. You can argue he was dealt an unwinnable hand because he was stuck with that contract and there was no way anyone was going to trade for Murray in that contract. He's been dealt a bad hand with injuries. Now, is that is that poor draft analysis? Is that not having, the best people um knowing and being able to project whether or not guys in the NFL are going to be able to stay healthy? That could be the case. I mean, we're getting to the point where, and I'll get to this later, there need to be some changes made on the medical side of things. But by far and away, Monty Fort is the number one guy on the hot seat for this Arizona Cardinals organization, except for Michael Bidwell. He's always on the hot seat, but he can't fire himself. So the next guy on the hot seat is Nick Rallis. He's now been in the Cardinals organization for 4 years. He's had some okay defenses. But last year's defense was an objectively horrible failure of a defense, especially with what it could have been. We thought, hey, hey, all the injuries, maybe not on Nick, right? So far during preseason, we haven't really seen the defense stop anyone, and it's not like they've played the best in the NFL. They and granted, they're not playing all their guys on defense either, but the Raiders look good against the first team defense. And that's the Oakland Raiders who had the number one pick. They're playing Kirk Cousins, who hasn't played very well. Now it is preseason, so we're reacting to like two drives. And there have been some guys that have made some flashes, like Walter Nolan, looked fantastic. But overall, if Nick Rallis doesn't doesn't improve the defense immensely from last year, it's likely that this is his last season in Arizona. Maybe there's continuity, maybe there's not. We'll see what happens with Josh Sweat. If Josh Sweat is traded, Nick Rallis doesn't have any guys that can really rush the passer. Calais Campbell and Josh Sweat were the two best pass rushers on the team last year. And with both of those guys gone and without a lot of replacements, obviously you hope that Walter Nolan makes up for the production that you're losing with Calais Campbell. But there's no one on this team with the ability to replace Josh Sweat. So Rallis is going to need to have a big improvement on the defensive side of the ball this season for him to stay in Arizona for another year. The next guy on the hot seat, and this is where things kind of change. Sorry. The next guy on the hot seat, or the next people on the hot seat, are the medical team and the strength and conditioning program. Now, I'm not giving blame to these guys for all of the Cardinals' injuries over the past few seasons. Injuries happen in football, they happen to everyone. But at the same time, when you keep drafting these young players who are supposed to be healthier than the older guys, but you keep drafting these young players and they just keep getting injured, maybe there's something there. Maybe there's not. But definitely if we have another injury season from hell, even if they're not the problem, it might just be time to change. That's sometimes just how it works in business. If you feel like the medical team and the strength and conditioning staff aren't getting the results that you want from your football team, probably probably means it's time for a change, whether it's really their fault or not. Number 4, it's Marvin Harrison Jr. Now, he's not going to get fired at the end of the season, but Michael Wilson has another 1,000-yard season and Marvin Harrison Jr. doesn't lead the team in receiving yards at the wide receiver position. I do think Trey McBride should lead the team in targets, yards, touchdowns, all of it. But if Marvin Harrison Jr. isn't second in targets, catches, yards, whatever it ends up being, if he's not clearly the number 2 receiver on the roster, he's on the hot seat because and it again puts Monty Austin for even more on the hot seat because going into next season, Michael Wilson is the number 1. No questions asked. No questions asked. He'll get a probably a decent extension at the end of the season if he is the Cardinals' number 1 receiver. And then what does that mean for Marvin Harrison? Yeah, you can try and go in free agency or you're the biggest letdown of an Ohio State wide receiver drafted in the first round in the last 5 to 8 years that Ohio State's been putting out wide receivers like this. Marvin Harrison is on the hot seat. Now, maybe in the next episode, I'll go through a list of guys in Arizona sports who are most on the hot seat in all of sports right now. But that's it for Cardinals talk outside of Trey McBride, who was the number 13 overall player ranked in the NFL's top 100 list. Trey McBride, 1, is the best tight end in football. He might be the best pass catcher in all of football. In fantasy this year, you could easily see McBride go first round. He probably will go first round. 126 catches last year, double digit touchdowns. This is a guy who's going to be in the conversation of best playmaker in the league, not just best tight end. I think he's got tight end covered. Now we're on to there's bigger fish to fry. And I hope at the end of the season we say Trey McBride is the best playmaker in football. I think he can do it. And I can't wait to watch him play this season. He's an incredible athlete. He's an incredible teammate. The video that the NFL posted about Trey McBride, he has so much respect from every player in the league. He's he never shies away from contact ever. Hopefully he continues to stay healthy. But Trey McBride, number 13th player in the league, should he have been higher? Could he have been higher? Maybe. It's so hard to in football because there's 22 guys on the field at all times and they all have different roles. It's hard to distinguish, who and the margin of error is so close. Is McBride the ninth best player overall in football? He could be. He could be. It's all in the eye of the beholder. Do I wish he was top 10? Yeah. For McBride, yeah. But 13, we'll take 13. Hopefully he's even higher next year. But Trey McBride, best tight end in football, on his way to becoming the best playmaker in football. And with that news, it got me thinking, who is the best athlete right now in Arizona sports? Because we look at, here's the obvious candidates: Trey McBride, Devin Booker, Corbin Carroll, Gabriel Moreno, Dylan Brooks, Geraldo Perdomo, Buda Baker, Josh Sweat. Could Jeremiah Love launch himself into this list? Could Michael Wilson or Marvin Harrison Jr. launch themselves into this list this season? Will Johnson becomes, one of the best 100 players in football. Could he launch himself onto his list? But here is and in my opinion, unarguable list of the best athletes in order in Arizona sports right now. And it's Trey McBride, number one, Devin Booker, number two, Corbin Carroll, number three, Gabriel Moreno, number four. Right now, these guys are the best four guys in sports. Trey McBride, best tight end in football, broke the single season tight end record for receptions. He's going to be an amazing player this season. Devin Booker, number two. This might be the first year that Devin Booker hasn't been one on this list in a very long time. Maybe, yeah, maybe since, Carson Palmer or Larry Fitzgerald or David Johnson, maybe Paul Goldschmidt in 2017. But Devin Booker for the last 5, 6 years has probably been number one on this list. Now, when Kevin Durant was on the team, you could argue which guy was better. To me, it was always Booker. But Booker's number two on this list. He's been supplanted by Trey McBride now. Corbin Carroll is number three. He's been to the All Star game. Uh, he's been in the All Star game 3 out of the last 4 seasons for the Diamondbacks. He's the face of the franchise. While right now his OPS is a little bit lower than Moreno's, I think we all know that Corbin Carroll is the best player on this Diamondbacks team, and he's quickly getting his OPS and his average and his slugging back up after a struggle in June and July. Four is Gabriel Moreno. This guy is on his way to being a silver slugger, a catcher in the National League. He's the best hitting catcher in the National League. He's one of the best defensive players, framing. You know, his in 2023, he was one of the best catchers ever at throwing runners out. Hasn't lived up to that since 2023, but still a guy that teams don't want to run on a lot. So you have Moreno, Carroll, Booker, McBride, and then number five is a really tough spot. I feel like there's a steep decline after the top four. You can make an argument for Dylan Brooks. He's only been in Phoenix for 1 year and it was a great season, but his overall body of work does not appear to put him into the top five athletes in Arizona sports right now, but he easily could be and maybe should be after his season. Geraldo Perdomo last year finished high in MVP voting in the National League. Hasn't had the same type of success, especially at the plate this year, but he has to be in conversation. Look at a guy like Buda Baker, longevity. He's still, I think he was number 74 or 75 on the NFL top 100. So obviously still respected among his peers, one of the best safeties in football. Josh Sweat, incredible year with the Cardinals, doesn't have that same longevity that guys like Trey McBride, Devin Booker, Corbin Carroll, and Gabriel Moreno do. These guys have only been on the scene for a couple of years. But at five, I'm gonna go Dylan Brooks because I think he came in and transformed the organization of the Suns and gave us hope. Unfortunately, Buda Baker, Josh Sweat have not been able to do that. If Perdomo was hitting a little bit better, like at 800 OPS and was back in, top 20, top 30 players in baseball consideration right now, I think he easily is on this list. But right now, Trey McBride is the number 13th player in the NFL. Devin Booker is number 18 according to the Ringer Top 100. Corbin Carroll, in my opinion, is a top 25 tool player in baseball. If you asked MLB teams, uh, who they want on their team, you don't get very far before. I mean, Corbin, I think Corbin's right now 21 in WAR this season. Gabriel Moreno's at 18 or 19, I believe. But teams would give up a lot as far as trade value goes. Corbin Carroll is definitely the best value asset on the Diamondbacks. Then you look at Gabriel Moreno with how well he's played, and when he's healthy, he's been this guy. he's been a high WAR player for the Diamondbacks when healthy. I think that's why, and this is very recency bias. Um, After this season, I'm in the moment right now. Gabriel Moreno has a 13 game hit streak in baseball right now, which leads, and he had like a 45, 46 streak of getting on base in every start. Like Gabriel Moreno is doing special, special things right now, so he has to be on the list. And then, yeah, I think it's Dylan Brooks, but Perdomo, Buda Baker, Josh Sweat, they all deserve a mention here. If we're thinking long term, could Jalen Green get his way onto this list? I hope so. Could Miles Bridges get his way onto this list? I hope so. Long term future, hopefully, Kaman Malawatch is in this list. Jeremiah Love should be on this list in hopefully at the end of the season. Trey McBride or Marvin Harrison Jr. or I mean, sorry, Marvin Harrison Jr. or Michael Wilson. Hopefully, at least one of these guys is on the list at the end of football season. Ketel Marte, the longevity, what he's done for the Diamondbacks organization, been a top player in baseball. Is he on the downward slope? Yes. So that's why I don't have him here. And I mean, we know I've covered it extensively in this podcast. We know what's happening between him and the Diamondbacks right now. But there's a lot of guys in the conversation to be on a list like this. But right now, the top four: Trey McBride, Devin Booker, Corbin Carroll, Gabriel Moreno. That's the show. Hope you guys enjoy listening. Please like, subscribe, listen on Spotify, uh, give a rating and a review. However, you're consuming this content, grateful for it. And hopefully, we can start building a community of Arizona sports fans. And just know that I am as passionate and as excited for Arizona sports as I've ever been. Ketel Marte, let's get this sorted out and go on a playoff run.